This is a super progressive review of Bedrock Futuro Remixes, compiled and mixed by Bedrock boss John Digweed.
Okay, I'm Ezequiel Arias. I was invited to remix Low Tide from Jamie Stevens and Sanky Gulati.
So I'm Jamie Stevens and I remixed Spencer Brown and Matt Zoe's track Spunday.
Hi, my name is Argia and I just remixed Bedrock by Ruth Hagelstein. And it's hard for me to pronounce the other artist's name, Die Wolfie.
I'm Gabi. Actually, my real name is Lucas. Well, I'm a DJ and producer from Argentina, from Buenos Aires. And the remix I made was for the track Don't Talk About from Four Candles, a good friend and colleague from the UK.
I'm Nick Stoynoff. I remixed Abu Fry's Be Gone original for Bedrock Records.
So my name is Loz Gallard, DJ producer from Manchester. And I was asked to remix Future Ascent by John Digweed and Nick Moore.
My name is Ali Jan, and it's also my artist name. And I did a remix for John Digweed, Nick Moore, and Captain Mustache's Blue Cobalt. I don't know how to say the track title.
So I'm Enzo, and my artist name is Cortona. And I remixed Lopez House, Vogler, and Mariano's track called Tarantula.
There are a few elements. There was the atmospherics behind, and it's something that I usually kind of attune to when I'm listening to an original track to remix. The layers behind, and I like kind of bringing those forward because I like atmospherics. So I could hear some great sort of sound design stuff in there, and that massive synth, that wah, 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 wah. I'm like, yeah. So I instantly thought, yeah, I could do something with that, and because it was called Spunday, thinking, might sort of bring it back to that sort of early 2000s vibe, but still kind of keeping it modern, obviously, not too throwback.
I remember I was like in the beach, taking some holidays, and started thinking about how to make a remix of this concept, like Don't Talk About. So I remember I had the idea of like adding to the project like some shh. So I had that idea and I thought, well, maybe I can do a shh just before the drop or something. So the concept itself was like really motivating for me.
Actually, I use in the breakdown, I use it from the whole track, not the stems or remix pack. I just put the whole track there, just EQ'd a bit and used it as it is from the original.
The melody. Just that. I mean, I love the track. I was already playing it, the original one, but the melody for me, it was like something really outstanding. And I tried, when remixing, I tried to keep the melody as the main thing because it's something really beautiful, and I think it's one of the best things of the track. It's like really stands out because it's a simple track, it's not like a really complex thing, but the melody it's really touchy.
They were kind of sounds and drum patterns and loops that were for me anyway, they were kind of different to what I'm used to hearing because they came from quite a kind of techno-y, techy kind of environment, which made it even more interesting.
I think mainly it was the breaks element of it, and there's quite a nice arpeggiator that runs through it as well, those two things I do work with a lot in my own tracks, especially the more breaks kind of stuff. That's what I've been focusing on for the last year or two, so I thought I could build something around that.
For me, the vocals were so trippy. I really like the way that the original treated the vocals, and from the very first minute I listened to the original, I knew that the vocals were the main thing of my remix. So definitely the vocals.
There's a prominent bell tone in the original that runs throughout the entirety of the track itself. So that became kind of the core or centerpiece of which everything else got built around.
It's good for me, like keeping things from the original one, but it's really important that it keeps an Argia sound. So in this case, I took a lot of things from the original one, but I just sampled it. Like the bass line from the original is totally different than the bass line that I made, but actually is the bass from the original. But I only take little parts and sample it and play them like totally different way.
You know, sometimes some remixers, even myself, I do like just use couple of bits from the original and never reminds you of the original track as a remix. But this case, it was a bit different. As I just mentioned, I used the full track from the breakdown, like this part with the pads and the melody and the nice effects. So I just added some stabs and made it a little bit houseier.
Really, again, starting with the breakbeat sample, and then just messing around on my soft synths and some drum machines and stuff like that. Just getting a few things into playing with that arpeggiator as well, and then having it switch between breaks and sort of like a 4/4 house beat as well throughout the track sort of lends itself to the stuff I've been doing. So yeah, rather than it just staying just one style, it flips between the two.
I've got a few little tricks. I mean, usually what I'll do is when I get the stems, I'll see what they sound like slowed down by an octave, just like half timing it. I'll try reversing bits. I'll send it through granulation software. I'll put like really heavy compression on it. One of my favorite things to do is put really heavy compression on it, so the quiet bits come right to the fore. I love little artifacts, so I try to kind of find those little artifacts by doing some really heavy compression and then treating it, then putting it through. Like I kind of have I usually go down a bit of a rabbit hole and then just follow my instincts and then go, oh, that little bit, and that could turn into like a loop, or it could be one little one-off sound, or it could be the basis of the low end. It could be anything, but I'll just kind of go down that sound design rabbit hole, like I said. Yeah. Good
question. I think it was about how could I redesign some of the original sounds, really. So, you know, instead of using them at face value, of things that I really like to do is pretty heavy amount of effect processing through various delays and tape delays and things of that nature. And then I go through a pretty labor-intensive, exhaustive editing process on the effects side, and then eventually start to hear those things, which is pretty much signature, if you will, for me, in terms of how I start to create a sound that's my own sound. I've always been, or had a soft spot for kind of extended breakdowns, you know, to each their own. So that's another component that I would say is unique to me.
Well, I kind of, took the kind of, put all the elements in, all the stems and all the parts, and then play around with them, and then gradually, bit by bit, you kind of take out the bits that aren't working so much, and you're left with your kind of favorite bits, and then you kind of blend them together and then add your own sound. So then you start playing in, you know, a bass line or adding a bit more percussion. I'm always about, and always have been about, some good conga bongo loops in tracks. I just love it, so I'll always chuck in some of those. And added in some sort of vocals just to give it some sort of atmosphere. But yeah, you can do a remix and just sort of almost rearrange a track as you interpret it. But yeah, I like to just throw a bit more into it and almost rebuild it from the bottom up using the elements that you like, and hopefully people that hear it will still recognize parts from the original track, but then hear that there's a whole new track kind of built around it.
I always try to say, okay, if I have made this track from me as an original track, how it will be, and I try to keep it like in the closest part to the original one, try to keep the original alive and give a little bit of my sound, of my characteristic sound. So for me, making a remix is not about changing a lot of things. I see sometimes artists do that, like giving a really different type of vibe and different type of, maybe sometimes you hear a remix and you can't even hear something that reminds you to the original one. And it's okay too, it's like different types of seeing a remix. But for me, it's like trying to keep it as original as can, but giving a little bit of my own sound there.
To be honest, I passed through like different stages, like trying different remixes, The first I made was like more classic progressive sound. But I wasn't sure about it because, I don't know, I thought I can do it better, I can do something more like original and different. So I keep trying. Well, the final version came out and I was, well, this is different and this is truly like a revision of the concept and of the track, and I tried to use as many elements I could, obviously like taking care of making them sound a bit different, processing, editing the audio, cutting the audio, well, the bass that's coming like just before the drop is literally an audio that I cut it, so yeah, I tried to use as many elements as I could from the original track, and well, I think I got a nice result.
Yeah, I'm all in the box these days, actually. I mean, previously, in what feels like a former life, I had like the Voyager, the Prophet, the Ensoniq, pedals, all that outboard gear. Ditched it for one reason or another. So I'm largely in the box, and what I use predominantly, and I used on this remix, was the Arturia analog suite, synth suite. It's phenomenal. My particular sound and what I'm interested in, a lot of that comes from that Arturia suite. And then again, a lot of delays and effects. So like the Moog MF delay, the Roland 201 delay. And these are emulations of hardware, but those were really prominent fixtures on the remix itself. Baby Audio Transit was another one that was utilized. And then again, a lot of editing too. So Soothe 2 has been one of my go-to plugins. It's a phenomenal plugin for controlling frequencies, things of that nature. But I'd say those were the prominent things that I used in terms of, quote unquote gear.
I think one of the biggest things would have been using OTT to, like I said, bring out those sort of textural sort of background noise elements from those more atmospheric sounds, and sampling lots of different tribally loops and cutting all those up. So some percussion parts from Battery. I use Battery a lot for sort of the programmed drum parts, and then I'll take loops to kind of get grooves and kind of rearrange and cut up. And I kind of the kind of vibe I was going for was thinking, okay, think about how Peace Division used to make their grooves work. And I'm always kind of like looking back at the way they make their grooves and the way they take little snippets of other loops and the way they EQ very particular parts of a loop and then layer them all together. So getting like a very obvious mid-range, a very obvious high end, and like the low end, and then cutting all those up. So taking a lot of inspiration from the Peace Division vibe, for sure.
Mostly I use only plugins. Yeah, I have a Move Sub 37, but nowadays I actually mainly plugins because I'm touring a lot and I can work in any place. So mostly plugins. Yeah.
The bass, I always, most of my tracks are coming from the Sub 37. It's like a really common bass. It's not something so I don't know, or different, or you need to do like a lot of processes. It's just a preset from the Sub 37 I'm really using to give like, it's a really characteristic bass I'm using in a lot of tracks. So I think that gives a little bit of my touch there. And then there's a synth bass that I also use a lot in my original stuff and my remix. I think it's something that a lot of people when they hear it, they say like, okay, this is Ese. And it's come from the Wavetable, that it's a plugin from the Ableton that for me, it's like, I'm not using a lot of VST or plugins because I got like my equipment in the studio. I got like some synthesizers that I'm really used to use. But this one, particularly the Wavetable, for me, it's like you can get a lot of modulation and analog kind of sound. So I really use that for the synth bass sometimes. And then actually the remix is I got a lot of the original stuff from Jamie and Sankey that they were really kind to send me the full project, so I can take a lot of the original stuff and try to give like a little bit of different process in the audio. Maybe just I use a lot of the UAD plugins, Waves also for the delays. I use the H delay, that it's a really good one. You can have a lot of creativity things with that one. And I use the OB6 for a synth pad that it's just making the same pad that Jamie and Sankey sent me from the original one, but I tried to give it a little bit of a different kind of color to the sound. So I took the OB6 for this particular pad. But then it's mostly all inside the box. So that's a little bit of the things I have used.
So I used Omnisphere for a lot of the synth work, and I mainly just used my drum machine, my Roland TR8, and then my live electronic drums as well for some of the cymbals and hats. So that's my Roland TD30K electronic drum kit.
To be honest, I have a pretty simple studio here in my back. This is also my bedroom. I still live with my parents here in Buenos Aires. So I don't have too much equipment because I don't have too much space here. Well, I use mostly like the whole stuff is software. Well, I have here an Ovation launch control for like using knobs and automations, and I also have a MIDI keyboard back there, but I don't use any hardware synths or I don't know. I just produce with like the basics, but honestly, I didn't add too much VSTs or new instruments to this one. I try to like recycle the same audio files I got from the remix pack.
I just flip the samples. I use Ableton. I use the sampler in Ableton. So I think that the steps in the remix are from the original track, just the parts I used, and it sounded like a step to me, and I just used it that way. What else I can say? I really like to use effects and I think my favorite is now the distortion from Arturia, which is called Cold Fire. I think I used it on every track, every channel. So that's how it is.
I mean, literally, it's my laptop, and I've got some really good Fostech speakers here, and to get a really good sound. But again, because I'm sort of learning, I then get help mixing it down, and then obviously it gets mastered. So I kind of take it up to a point that I can, and then hand it over to someone to really get the levels right, because that makes such a huge difference. But pretty much, you know, anyone could do it really. If you've got the time and the inclination, and you've got a decent laptop, you know, it's just putting the time in and having the love to do it. I mean, yeah, I was saying to someone the other day, I did an interview for someone else, and if you imagine being a football player and you're playing Sunday League, and then someone like Real Madrid comes in to sign you, that's what it feels like for me, because I've had a very long connection with Bedrock and John Digweed. I mean, he was one of the first big DJs that came in our record shop back in 1994-95, and we used to do the records for him as well as plenty of other DJs, but he always loved it. He loved the early kind of UMM sound, so the sort of tribal progressive stuff. So we had a good connection, and then when we started launching our labels, he asked us to come and play at Bedrock, which we did a few times. So there's been a long connection there, and yeah, I just feel totally honoured to have been given the chance to do it.
I was thinking about this the other day and realised that I've actually got more. I think this is not a flex. It's just it was just a realisation. It's this realisation that I've actually had more tracks released on Bedrock than any other label, and it was just like, it kind of blows my mind. And I guess the point is, it kind of blows my mind thinking about when I used to listen to those Renaissance compilations and, you know, following John's, you know, trajectory as a DJ. Then from the very first time I heard that he would play our infusion music, to think that now he thinks that my music is worthy of being on a label as amazing as Bedrock. It doesn't grow old. It still feels great. I mean, when he contacted me and said, you know, we want you to remix a track off that compilation, it's like, fantastic. It's still, you know, it's just really, really wonderful to be recognised that you have something to contribute to something as legendary as Bedrock, for sure.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Actually, it was. I felt really, really shocked when Jamie contacted me and told me that Sean was asking for someone to remix, and him and Sanki were thinking on me. So I was quite shocked because I never expected. I mean, I had a good relation with Jamie and with Sanki too. Sanki has been the very first promoter to take me to Australia, so we have been in a really good relation after that, sharing music and sharing things. And you know, Jamie, for me, it's like I started hearing Jamie productions in Hernan sets when I really started my journey into electronic music, and Jamie is such a legend. And we have been talking since like 5 or 6 years ago. As I reached him and I told him that I was really, really into his music, and I was surprised that when I reached him, he was telling me that he really loved my music too. So we started like chatting, like, you know, like DJs and producer. I have sent some music. He sent some music too. Maybe I hear a track that was not released, and I asked to him, and he was really kind to send me. But I never expect that he was thinking on me to remix a track from him. So and also get the chance to release something on Bedrock. For me, it was a dream. It was one of the labels that I really was looking into it. And maybe because of my type of sound, it's not easy to get into Bedrock because my sound is like a really old progressive style, I think. So it was like a really honor, and I'm super happy that they come with me, and I'm also really happy with the final result, because sometimes for me doing a remix, I'm excited at the beginning and I try, but it happened to me sometimes in the past years that I have said yes to a remix, but when finished I didn't like the result and I end up didn't releasing it. So it's also good that we ended up with a really, really nice result that everyone was happy. John, Scott from Bedrock, Jamie and Santi, and me. That's also important, to be happy with the result. So yeah, it was like something really, really good to happen.
Absolutely. For me, has been a great achievement in my career, as I'm a big fan of John's project since the very beginning, and I really, for me, it's an honor, because the long path that he walked, it's something like very, very difficult to get nowadays. So for me, like being supported by him, it's something really, really important, and encouraged me to still doing music and to still believing in myself.
Well, actually, it was crazy. When I got the proposal, I couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. And it was also like, I don't know, crazy, because first I received the proposal to do this remix, and then I sent new music to Sean, and then I received also like Scott's, like is the label manager of Bedrock. He asked me if my track Slider was free, and actually, like, the Slider was released before the remix I made. Like I received the remix proposal. Of course, I said yes, let's do it. I sent them the remix. They said, okay, it's nice, we will release it, but we don't know when, because this is a project with too many producers involved, so we don't know exactly when this will be released. And then I sent new music, like just to share with him. He didn't answer my email, but he downloaded the tracks. And then one day I received the Scott email asking me for my track Slider that was released in Live in Stereo compilation. And it was crazy because actually my original track was released before the remix I made, So I had 2 releases in Bedrock in like this last month, and it's crazy. It's crazy to be involved also in this compilation, where I find, like, for example, Guy J, Ken, they both, and all of them, I mean, great producers, but especially they two are like my first inspirations in this electronic music path, So it's crazy to be sharing my music in the same various artists that they are like releasing his music. So well, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I think I don't. In Spanish we say como no caigo. Yeah, it was a dream for me, and suddenly the proposal came, and then suddenly again Scott asking for original music too. So it's really, I'm really proud to be like finishing this year with this accomplishment,
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I've been listening to John, his transition show for a long time. And how I like one of the reasons I got into sort of the house and deep house side of electronic music. So yeah, to be asked to remix one of his tracks was it's definitely a special thing. It's felt like a big job. I've had remixes in the past where, you know, I've just thought, I'll get something out. It's you know, see whatever happens. This one sort of, it's got to be really good because it's going to be sat on a record with a load of other tracks that are going to be of such high standard. So yeah, I wanted to make sure it was exactly how I wanted it.
Yes, of course. Like Bedrock, I'm a massive fan of Bedrock. I started following them, I think, since early 2000s. I have many of the records at home. So it's been a big honor for me to be featured on this special project as a remixer. So yeah, it's like a check on my list, you know, to-do list as a producer.
It's hard to believe, you know. I think I was talking to, you know, I have to mention Aubrey too, is someone who I really admire. His music I really admire. You know, I think we've developed a really good friendship and we're collaborating on a lot of music too. And he pinged me, said, "You want to give it a shot?" Sure. And you know, I think these things show up when you least expect them in life. And so for me, it's, you know, it's emotional too. It's a big deal. Never thought it would happen, but very grateful. We're very grateful for it, and very lucky to have been given the opportunity to at least try to do it, you know, to try to impress these guys or get their approval, you know, Aubrey and John and everyone on the project. So it's very, very gratifying. You know, I put a lot of time into this over the years, 15-ish years, so feels good for sure.